Let's go back to our Liberia story. Freelance journalist, blogger and head of All African News in Monrovia, Liberia, Boakai Fofafa joins us now back on Skype. Very good morning to you once again. Just before we seem to lost connection, I asked, it seems that everything is going quite well with regards to the way that elections are running. Is that a fair estimate to say?
Oh, that is a fair explanation.
In fact, that is an explanation that has been validated by international observers, including those from the African Union and ECOWAS. They said officially that the elections, the runoff elections, specifically meet the standard of, they meet international standards, and that at least the poll workers have a greater degree of familiarity, and polls open largely, in most of the places on time. And it seems to be that it was generally well conducted. And what is happening now, in fact, they even appraised the counting process has been very transparent as well. So everybody is sort of on center hopes now, waiting for the official announcement from the National Elections Commission. But, like I was telling you earlier before we got caught up, is that most of the poll workers in these different polling places, following the counting process, they put out the results at the different polling centers, and it is from these results at the different polling centers, about 5,000 across the country, that people are beginning to already celebrate. And specifically, we know that supporters of George Weah, the soccer icon of the Coalition for Democratic Change, they're beginning to claim victory, but we will get official indication of that later today.
Now, you have mentioned that his camp has claimed victory. Is there any possibility that the lead could be turned around?
Well, yeah, there is a possibility. Everything is possible. I mean, the lead could be turned around, definitely. Their supporters, when I say claim victory, they aren't like saying that they've won. I mean, some of their supporters are already beginning to claim that they've won. The possibility of a turnaround is there, but as journalists, we already beginning to speak to some of the folks within the vice president's camp, and they are starting to concede. Privately, they will say, well, I think we've lost it.
I spoke to a source earlier this morning who was telling me that from their own count, about 50% of the results from their own count, has already come in, and from that count, he thinks that they've lost it.
Now, Weah has picked Jewel Howard Taylor, the wife of Charles Taylor, as his vice president. How are his supporters taking the news?
Well, that happened like earlier this year. It raised some eyebrows, especially in the international community. Like you said, she's the ex-wife of former President Charles Taylor. I remember talking to her sometime this month, and that was the very point that I raised. Well, she said she's no longer the wife of Taylor, and she cannot be held accountable for whatever he might have done. What they're going to be pursuing now is the agenda of their political party, which is a coalition of of Taylor's former party, George Weah's party, and another political party. But they've tried strenuously to allay fears that, that some of the fact that she's on the ticket, that they're going to be pursuing the Taylor agenda. But I would think that, like most Liberians at this stage, even though the opponents will say otherwise, but those are the people that elected George Weah, or that went to the polls to vote for him, don't think as much about the Jewel Howard Taylor thing anymore.
Now, it's been a long several weeks. We do know that there have been legal challenges that have marred the election process. Liberians must be waiting, bated breath, waiting for the outcome. How are they taking the delay in the results of the announcements?
Well, this is consistent with what happened the last time. It is not much of a delay, by Liberian standard. The last time we waited for just about the same time, about 48 hours before the National Elections Commission began to announce results. So people are just, some of the people have already resigned to accepting whatever the result is. But what I can tell you, the atmosphere in Monrovia is really calm. I mean, people are moving about their normal businesses, and it is following the festive season. Some other people are still in festive mode. It is surprisingly normal, especially following such contentious elections. You would have expected that the stakes would be high and what have you, especially Liberia is a post-conflict nation. But, fortunately, some would say everything seems to be proceeding normally by today. Maybe later today, we've gotten, we might get some announcements from the National Elections Commission, which will give official indication of where the votes, will be headed, in which direction, and who is likely to succeed President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.